Kunja Vihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Manachari. Yamuna Tira Manachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Manachari. Yamuna Tira Manachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Manachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravajakacharya Astur Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki. ISKCON Samstapakacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Canto Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. God Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We are very honored and very happy to have His Grace Tattvavit Prabhu. Prabhuji is Srila Prabhupada's disciple. He came to Krishna consciousness way back in 1974. In January, he joined ISKCON and met Srila Prabhupada. Before joining ISKCON, he had done his graduation from University of Minnesota. And since now more than 51 years, he has been wonderfully serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada. He was very instrumental in helping and developing Back to Godhead magazine service, which Prabhupada very much wanted. Prabhupada considered as backbone of our movement. Also, he has written many articles, more than 3 dozen articles in Back to Godhead magazine. He is also a wonderful editor. He has edited more than 36 books. And currently he is based in Radhadesh, Belgium, and he serves as co-editor for ISKCON Communication Journal, which is very widely respected journal in Vaishnava community. So we would like to welcome His Grace Tattvavit Prabhu to ISKCON Newtown, Shishi, Nitai Government Temple by loudly chanting 3 times.
Thank you very much, Acharya Prabhu. Thank you, devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Kuno Rajan Indriyavan. Kunu Raja Indriyavan.
Kunu Raja Indriyavan.
Mukunda Charana Bhujam.
Mukunda Charana Bhujam.
Mukunda Charana Bhujam.
Mukunda Charana Bhujam.
Na Bhajet Sarvato Mrityu. Na Bhajet Sarvato Mrityu. Upasyam Amarotamai. Upasyam Amarotamai. Gunorajan Indriyavan. Mukunda Charanam Bhujam. Na Bhajet Sarvato Mrityur. Upasyam Amarotamai. Please chant.
Konurajan Indriyavan.
Konurajan Indriyavan.
Mukunda Charanam Bhujam.
Mukunda Charanam Bhujam.
Bhajet Sarvato Mrityu.
Bhajet Sarvato Mrityu.
Upasyam Amarato Mai.
Konurajan Indriyavan.
Konurajan Indriyavan.
Mukunda Charanam Bhujam.
Mukunda Charanam Bhujam.
Bhajet Sarvato Mrityu.
Bhajet Sarvato Mrityu.
Upasyam
Mukunda Charanambujam
Bhajet sarvato mrityu
Navajet Sarvato Mrityu
Asyam amaruttame
Vasyam Amarottamaye Gururajan Indriyaman Mukunda Charanambujam Navajet Sarvato Mrityu Vasyam Amarottamaye.
Ladies, Who? Nu. Indeed. Rajan. O King. Indriyavan. Possessed of senses. Mukunda Charanambujam. The lotus feet of Lord Muchukunda.
Lotus feet of Lord Mukunda.
Mukunda.
The lotus feet of Lord Mukunda.
Nabajet. Would not worship. Sarvatamrityu. Being faced by death. On all sides. Upasyam. Worshipable. Amara Uttamai. By the best of liberated personalities. Translation and purport. My dear King, in the material world, the conditioned souls are confronted by death at every step of life. Therefore, who among the conditioned souls would not render service to the lotus feet of Lord Mukunda, who is worshipable even for the greatest of liberated souls? Please repeat, my dear King. In the material world, the conditioned souls are confronted by death at every step of life. Therefore, who among the conditioned souls would not render service to the lotus feet of Lord Mukunda, who is worshipable even for the greatest of liberated souls. Purport. The word Indriyavan is significant in this verse. Indriyavan means possessing senses. Although we are conditioned within the material world, by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, we are awarded a human body which possesses distinct senses, such as the eyes, ears, tongue, nose, and skin. Generally, the conditioned souls use these senses in a false attempt to exploit the material nature for sense gratification. But our material senses and their objects are temporary, and it is not possible to become peaceful or happy in the attempt to gratify our temporary senses with the temporary sense objects offered by Maya, the illusory energy of the Lord. In fact, our strenuous endeavor to satisfy the material senses inevitably brings exactly the opposite result, namely material suffering. A man is attracted to a woman. Being sexually aroused, he marries her. And soon, there's a family that requires ever increasing support. In this way, his innocent and simple life is ended, and he spends the major portion of his life working hard like an ass to support the demands of his family. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila describes very clearly that in spite of the exhausting work a man performs throughout his life, his family is ultimately dissatisfied, and when the exhausted father reaches old age, the irritated family members look upon him just as farmers look upon an old and useless ox. Sometimes the sons dream of receiving their father's money as an inheritance and secretly wish for him to die. Nowadays, people strongly resent the trouble of caring for elderly parents and therefore send them to an institution where they die lonely and neglected after a life of hard work for their so-called loved ones. One doctor in England is seriously proposing euthanasia for the elderly persons who are no longer productive. Nowadays, some people desiring material sense gratification but hoping to avoid the inconvenience of family life try to enjoy free sexual relations with women without the trouble of marriage. Through birth control and abortion, they eliminate the disturbance of caring for children. In this way, they hope to enjoy material sense gratification without any material impediment. By the laws of nature, however, such persons become bound in a network of sinful reactions by avoiding their real duty to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and by thoughtlessly causing violence and suffering to others for increasing their own sense gratification. Caught in a network of impious activities, they drift further and further away from their original pure consciousness and gradually lose all power to understand the laws of nature. Therefore, it is stated here, sarvato mrityu. Mrityu means death. Death suddenly appears. Startling such confident sense gratifiers and destroys their entire program of so-called material happiness. Often such persons are afflicted with ghastly diseases and undergo inconceivable suffering, which ends in death. If a sincere well-wisher points these facts out to them, trying to inform them of the reality, they become angry and accuse him of being a pessimist or a religious fanatic. In this way, people blindly ignore the laws of nature until these laws inevitably smash them down and drag them out of their fool's paradise. Because of an excessive accumulation of sinful results, they are forced into situations of great distress by the laws of karma. Sinking down into the lower species of life, they lose all awareness of that which lies beyond their gross material senses. Sometimes a living being is able to understand the miserable result of materialistic sense gratification, being frustrated by the pain and suffering of materialistic life, and being ignorant of any superior life. He adopts a neo-Buddhist philosophy and seeks shelter in so-called nothingness. But there is no actual void within the kingdom of God. The desire to merge into nothingness is a reaction against material pain. It is not a tangible concept of the Supreme. For example, if I feel unbearable pain in my leg and the pain cannot be cured, I may finally agree to have my leg amputated, but it is far better to remove the pain and keep my leg. Similarly, because of false ego, we think, I am everything, I'm the most important person, no one is as intelligent as me. And thinking in this way, we may suffer constantly and experience intense anxiety. But as soon as we purify the ego by admitting that we are insignificant, eternal servants of Krishna, our ego will give us great pleasure. Shri Krishna, the Lord of the blissfully variegated spiritual sky called Vaikuntha, is always absorbed in transcendental enjoyment. In fact, Shri Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. People absorbed in materialistic enjoyment are bound by the laws of omnipresent death. But if we endeavor instead to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we can immediately be connected to His Ladini Shakti, or blissful potency. If we serve Krishna under the guidance of His authorized representative, the spiritual master, we can immediately get relief from material distress. Then we shall not yearn after nothing, but instead we shall be able to relish unlimited spiritual bliss in the service of the Supreme Lord. Sarvato Mrityu also indicates that birth and death occur on every planet in the universe. Therefore, our so-called space travel and cosmic consciousness are useless because there is no eternal life anywhere within the material cosmos. In conclusion, to understand the futility of engaging in the service of anything other than Krishna, and to engage instead in serving that which is eternal and full of bliss, is the highest possible development of intelligence. Although our present intelligence is narrow, being conditioned by the laws of nature, we can create unlimited good fortune for ourselves by taking shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, learning to discriminate between that which is temporary and useless and that which is eternal and real. Can you give me a Bhagavad Gita? Oma Gyana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshusum Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurube Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishta Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tpar Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sakana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajiva Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinam Bandhu Chagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hare Priya Vanchakopatarubhyascha Kripasindhu Bhivachapati Tanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Konu Rajan Indriyavan Mukunda Charanam Bhujam Na bhajet sarvato mrityu pasyam amarotamai. Shukadeva Goswami is the speaker of this. He was vastly learned in all aspects of Krishna consciousness. So for us, he's a worshipable soul. He's one of these greatest of the liberated souls. He might be referring here to the Atmarama. Atmarama is someone who's self-satisfied by knowing about the Atma. And lots of different types of Atmaramas are described. There's I think 64 meanings to the Atmarama, name Atmarama. So these personalities, they're attracted to worship Mukunda. And so the sage Sukadeva, He has a question, for the king here. People are confronted by death on all sides. You can't escape death. So, who among them would not render service? Who would not turn to Mukunda in such a situation? Good question. What do you think the answer is? Who would not, among the conditioned souls, who would not turn to Mukunda? Sorry?
Foolish people. Foolish people.
Foolish people, yes. But another way of saying foolish is uneducated. Mudha means someone who lacks education. That's the obvious answer. People who don't know, obviously they're not going to be able to turn to Mukunda unless they know about him. Shubhananda is smiling. Why are you smiling, Yesterday, Shubhananda and I met. And one thing about Shukadev and Pariksit, it's such an important conversation. Their conversation gave us the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the king was supposed to be protecting the citizens as the ruler, but he met with this curse, and he decided, well, now in 7 days I have to die. Suddenly death was just right before him. So he decided, I have to find out now what the best thing to do is at the time of death. So in that way, Krishna arranged for him to meet Shukadeva Goswami. And he sat down and heard the Bhagavatam. Some people might say, well, now what are we going to do? The king isn't protecting the kingdom anymore. He's renounced the kingdom so that he can hear the Bhagavatam. But in a higher sense, the Shravanam Kirtanam, the hearing and the chanting of the Bhagavatam, provides for protection. It provides protection for many conditioned souls, even us, not just the residents, the citizens of Parikit's kingdom at that time. But now we are under the protection of Pariksit, you can say, because we're hearing his conversation with Shukadeva Goswami, and we're finding out how to be protected by the lotus feet of Mukunda, even now. So we're being delivered from the problems of conditioned life. And they're described here in connection with the word Indriyavan. Those who are possessed of senses. This is a kind of conditioning, we're endowed with a set of senses. Now we have the human form of life. previously we may have lived in the other species of life with different types of senses. But the general rule is that no matter what type of body the conditioned soul has, he's using his senses for the pursuit of some material pleasure. So indriyavan, possessing senses, means I'm trying to find pleasure in the objects of the senses. And that is described here as a false attempt. False here means in the sense that it's a temporary endeavor, and the fruits, the results of that endeavor are temporary. Therefore, it's false. According to Krishna's opinion in the Bhagavad Gita, if something is temporary, it's false, it doesn't really exist. Nasato vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sataha. If something doesn't really exist, Krishna says, then it doesn't endure. And if something endures, then it's eternal. So of the eternal, there's no change. And of the non-existent, the non-eternal, the asat of the non-existent, there's never any endurance. So this body comes and goes. There's no endurance permanently of the material body. Nasato vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sata. So the reestablishment of the conditioned soul with the eternal personality of Godhead. There's an eternal relationship between the soul and the personality of Godhead, and that has to be reestablished. That removes the ignorance that comes with conditioned life. That removes the ignorance that comes with having senses, indriyavan, and simply endeavoring to obtain the sense objects. That kind of life is a life of the false ego. I'm thinking, these are my senses, and let me enjoy them. What are the senses? There's an opinion given by Nalakuvara and Manigriva to Krishna. They express their realization. After Krishna liberates them from the twin Arjuna trees, they offer prayers to the Lord. And they say to Krishna, Krishna, we realize now that the mind of the living entity, the senses of the living entity, even the false ego of the living entity, these energies are nothing but you, Krishna. So they're saying that our senses are nothing but Krishna. Did you ever think of your senses as nothing but Krishna? My senses. That's nothing but Krishna. We don't usually think like that. But Nala Kubera and Managriva point that out. We're thinking the senses are me, and the false ego is thinking you're the senses, and we don't think the senses are nothing but Krishna. He's actually given those senses to us. He's the proprietor of those senses. Rishikesh. And the purpose of the senses is to serve the master of the senses. That's the relationship. So the senses that we have, it's like renting a house. This body is like a house for us with a certain set of senses, and that's what we've got for the time being. It's where we're living. It's a residence for the soul. But you don't, if you're just a renter, you're not the owner, and you don't get to stay there forever. The owner eventually has control. Again, you have to change your body and change your senses again. There's another parallel idea in the Bhagavad Gita in connection with the verse in which Krishna says, I'm the father of this universe and the mother. I'm the support of the universe. I'm the grandfather of the universe. I'm the object of, and so on. The parallel idea is given here. In the material existence, we create different relationships with different living entities. For example, some of the living entities appear as our father and mother and grandfather, grandmother, cousins. But they are nothing but Krishna's marginal energy. So this is a new light on family life. We can speak about my family members, brothers, sisters, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins. But in another sense, who are they? They're nothing but Krishna's marginal energy. They're spirit souls who are also possessing senses. And you're all kind of possessing senses in a group. You have the same genes, you have the same DNA, your family group. But here Prabhupada describes in the purport, under the creation of Prakriti, the material energy, some of them appear as our father and mother, but actually they're parts and parcels of Krishna. As such, these living entities who appear to be our father and mother are nothing but Krishna. Did you ever think of your mom and dad as nothing but Krishna? No. But they are. Listen to this. Not only are our father and mother parts and parcels of Krishna, but the grandparents are also Krishna. Actually, any living entity being part and parcel of Krishna is Krishna. This kind of discussion helps us purify our constitutional position. We can understand Krishna by understanding these things. This Canto 11 contains a verse in which it says that the whole material energy is meant just to satisfy the self. The living entity wants to become satisfied. Self-satisfaction is the pursuit. I want to satisfy my senses and so on. So Krishna gives us the whole material energy with which to do this. If you're not satisfied, maybe you're not trying hard enough, because the whole material energy is here for you to find self-satisfaction. The whole creation is for you. You can find self-satisfaction here. But that satisfaction doesn't last. It doesn't satisfy the self, because the contact with the senses and the sense objects is temporary, it changes, it doesn't last. And therefore we're described as being, attracted, marginal energy, attracted to the external energy of Krishna. We want to live, you could say, in the external energy. That means outside of Krishna. We want to live outside of Krishna, in the external energy of Krishna. That's outside of Krishna. But the internal energy is where Krishna wants us. Krishna wants us under the Prakriti, the Daivi Prakriti, the transcendental energy. He wants us to have our relationship with Him in that energy. But the spirit soul has independence, and he's determined. He's self-determined. He wants self-determination. He wants a kind of freedom where I determine my own happiness, my own independence. I want to feel my independence and freedom. Yesterday I saw an exhibition about this. I visited the Victoria Memorial where Srila Prabhupada used to take his walks. And we got the ticket to look inside at the galleries. And there's a large gallery of oil paintings of the heroes of the Indian independence movement. Many great personalities are painted, and brief description given of their contribution to the to the independence of India. So self-determination was an important factor there. Right? We want to determine our own future. We don't want so many foreigners in India to determine our future, our life. Srila Prabhupada also liked that spirit when he was a student. It's quite natural for students to be a little rebellious against the authorities. And Prabhupada was attracted to the movement of Gandhi for that reason. Let's throw off the influence of the Britishers, huh? Do you remember what Prabhupada did in college when it was time for him to get his degree? He didn't go because the students the students were being encouraged, boycott that. Just don't give them the legitimacy. Don't give the college the legitimacy of awarding you your degree. Just forgo that. So that spirit of Gandhi, even it influenced America. One of the big exponents of the philosophy of nonviolence in America was a black person, Martin Luther King. He led the resistance against racism to blacks in America, and he had some success. And as a college student, I also had a course on this. We studied a few of the ideas of Gandhi in this course, and we did a fast. Once we did a fast, practicing nonviolence. We did a protest against the government because the government was taking the students for the Vietnam War. And the idea was that the Vietnam War was unjust. It was not fair to the Vietnamese people. It was somehow, being done under the name of stopping communism. But really, come on, it was, just the military exerting their power, and this kind of consciousness was there among the students. Srila Prabhupada's disciples were worried about being drafted into the Vietnam War. And in that same spirit, I was at that time just finishing my bachelor's degree, and I thought maybe I should just not accept it. Actually, like that. I found out later that Prabhupada had that idea, but at the time I also had that kind of indifference to it, because we were kind of indifferent to materialistic life. We became indifferent to the materialistic life of our parents. We grew up, enjoying middle-class life, and we somehow thought, that's not going to satisfy me when I'm an adult. I'm not going to do the same thing my parents did. And so there were, what they call the countercultural activities where you don't go along with the dominant culture. You try to create some different culture. So in this way we create identities, and cultures are created. We come from different backgrounds, but when we study, we find, there's similarities in the way people operate in different parts of the world. Yesterday we were at Bhakti Vinod Ashram, and I was reading a short description of the history. It began in 1918 and lasted until 1930, and then there was a different place located. But at that time, I was thinking of those dates, 1918, 1920. Those were the approximate dates that my parents were born. So this movement was going in Kolkata. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta got the movement going in Kolkata just around the time my parents were born. My mother's father, my grandfather, maternal grandfather, He died when I was a boy, and he was actually the first dead person that I saw in my life. In some cultures, I don't know if you do this here in India, but in some cultures, they have some undertaker embalm the body. Somehow the fluids are drained from the body and some chemicals are in the body instead, put in the body instead by the undertaker. And then the body is put in a casket and dressed up, and the body lies in the casket for a few days for the relatives of the deceased person to come and see. One comes and sees the dead body and offers prayers. That kind of thing was going on. So I remember as a boy going up to the casket and looking at my grandfather's body before he was put in the ground in a casket. And then later his wife died, my grandmother. And, the ideas we had from Christianity at that time were that the soul may go to purgatory. If you're not a perfect soul, you go to purgatory where you can be further purified. This is something like the idea of ancestor worship, where the ancestors didn't make it out of the material world, so the relatives offer prayers. And then, of course, there's heaven and hell in Christianity, that idea. Recently, my oldest brother died just a couple weeks ago, November, I think, December. And one of my cousins, to show you how advanced in spiritual knowledge, I'll quote what my cousin said about my brother's death. She said, "Oh, now he's with his mother and grandmother, who are also deceased. His soul has joined the souls of his mother and grandmother, and now they're together, and they're so happy together." What? So, actually, Prabhupada was my grandfather. I found out Prabhupada was about 57 years older than me. That's like grandfather's age. So I identified with him to some extent like that, as the most wonderful relative, elderly. But he was so much more than a relative. He was an elderly sage, he's actually Tattvavit, not me. I'm the servant of Tattvavit. He's the Tattvavit. He knows Krishna in all features, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And because of his knowledge of the soul, he knew the teaching of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita about the soul. And there was nobody else, no philosopher, no religionist, who had a better philosophy of the soul than Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, my faith in Prabhupada was very strong, because Prabhupada's knowledge was perfect. He was giving the perfect knowledge of Krishna. And anyone who read Bhagavad Gita and didn't accept this, what is wrong with these people that they don't accept the Bhagavad Gita? You have to ask, like Shukadeva is saying, who in this world, confronted by death at every step of life, would not render service to the lotus feet of Lord Mukunda? But the Bhagavad Gita also explains the reasons why people won't accept this, why they don't accept the knowledge of the soul. So many reasons they have. But Prabhupada, anyway, he was also, the most wonderful teacher. His classes were so enlivening. And the way he presented himself, in the temples as the guru and teacher before the students was very charming and heartwarming. His humility and his friendliness to other conditioned souls, to the conditioned souls, melted our hearts. He offered us not only the teachings, but the opportunity to practice the teachings. He opened the centers and he said, you come and live and learn how to render devotional service in the temple. So he was like, in that sense, again, like a wonderful grandfather taking care of his grandchildren, or his children, you could say also. The spiritual masters are the father, considered the father also. So, but his as a teacher and as an author, Prabhupada excelled so many teachers and authors that we know as we grow up. We read and we find out about different writers and teachers and ideas, and we become attracted to different ideas. But Prabhupada was the best of the teachers. And a real hero also. He was a real hero because he came so courageously with nothing as a shelter in America, nothing. He just trusted Krishna to give him shelter in America. And he came with Krishna's message. He was coming to win a kind of victory for Krishna. When we say Jai, Jai, it means a victory for Krishna. When someone surrenders to Krishna, that's a victory for Krishna. That's what Krishna wants. Krishna wants the soul to become self-realized and become his devotee. So Prabhupada was winning these kinds of victories for Krishna. He was making people devotees of Krishna, which is very pleasing to Krishna. One thing I see in India, I was in Juhu Beach the last 6 weeks. I go often to Juhu Beach first when I arrive in India. And thousands of people come to the temple every day. The noon program, the morning program, the 4 p.m. program, the evening program. People are just pouring into the temple all day. They have a huge, well-organized process for receiving all these visitors. And it strikes me that, the hearts of the people that Krishna attracts, their hearts are simple. It's easy for them to come before Krishna and appreciate how beautiful Krishna is and to give some fruits or flowers or some Lakshmi. And on a regular basis, every day, so many are coming. So it's so much different than the followers of Christianity or Judaism or Islam, where going to the temple is something that you do on Friday if you're a Muslim, or Saturday if you're a Jew, or Sunday if you're a Christian. In the West, there's no flow of people going to the church or the synagogue or the mosque all day, every day of the week. There isn't that kind of thing. So your culture is spiritually more surcharged, and your hearts are more simple and pure, because you accept this easy way of relating to Krishna. Very, very quickly you accept this way of serving Krishna. Are there any questions?
Anybody has a question? Can you raise the hand? We'll send the mic.
Good.
What inspired you to join Hare Krishna?
Chanting was easy. I saw the devotees chanting on beads and I thought, I can do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get... And I liked the prasadam and the philosophy and the association. And I found a service that I liked. Editing was kind of a continuation of my university education and, involvement with books and reading a lot. So those things.
And what helped you to stick on to this process for last more than 50 years?
What
helped you to continue this process, though because the process means so many ups and downs, so many challenges also. So how
I have to
Srila Prabhupada departed.
I have to
continue.
I have to say, like Shukadev says here, my dear king, my dear temple president, in the material world, the conditioned souls are confronted by death at every step. Therefore, who among us would not render service in ISKCON? The philosophy keeps you, and the association of devotees, of course. Yeah, we go up and down. There's that process where if you're a criminal, you're punished by being submerged in water, so that to the point where you're going to drown, and then they let you come up again and get a breath of air, and you think, oh, relief, and then they plunge you down again, right? This is a way of torturing a criminal, trying to make him realize he's a stupid fool and he should stop his... So sometimes in ISKCON, the ups and downs maybe teach us something about our own quality as a criminal. We're kind of criminal-like people sometimes. That's just part of being a human being. We like to cheat. We're imperfect. We have to face we become aware of our own defects. Sometimes we want to step on the gas, and make progress, but we hit the brake, and then we're not going anywhere. But there's a reason for that. We make the mistake of hitting the brake instead of going forward, because we have some big idea of ourselves. I'm a big something, and if I can make myself appear to other people, see me in that light as something big and important, then they won't see my faults. They won't see my defects. So we build up our self in this world so that people see the good. And we don't want people to see the faults in ourselves. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
His Grace Tattvavit Prabhu.